There are moments in sports broadcasting that cut through the noise so cleanly, so precisely, that you feel it before you even fully process what was said. Sunday afternoon delivered one of those moments. During a nationally televised NBC broadcast of the Indiana Fever versus Seattle Storm matchup, analyst Kate Scott stepped off the script, stepped away from the comfortable lane of neutral commentary, and did something that far too few voices in mainstream sports media have been willing to do when it comes to Caitlyn Clark. She told the truth, not the emotional truth, not the fan truth, the mathematical truth, the analytical truth. The kind of truth that doesn't bend to narrative pressure, doesn't bow to institutional bias, and doesn't soften its edges to avoid controversy. And in doing so, she dismantled one of the most persistent, most weaponized, and most intellectually dishonest criticisms that has followed Caitlyn Clark from her college days at Iowa all the way into her professional career with the Indiana Fever. The turnover criticism. 3 years of it. 3 years of the same chorus, the same recycled talking point, the same surface-level reading of a box score stripped entirely of context, used as a battering ram against a player who is quietly rewriting the record books and single-handedly dragging her franchise into national relevance. Today, we are breaking all of it down. We are going to examine what Kate Scott said and why it matters analytically. We are going to look at the actual numbers behind Caitlyn Clark's performance and what they reveal about the kind of offensive player she truly is. And we are going to take a hard, honest look at the situation surrounding the Indiana Fever organization. Because while the national broadcast booth is doing the work of defending and contextualizing their star player, serious questions are mounting about whether the franchise itself is doing the same. Welcome to Simply Explained. Let us get into it. To understand the weight of what Kate Scott said on Sunday, you first need to understand the climate she was speaking into. Caitlyn Clark opened the 2026 WNBA season with back-to-back games that immediately handed her critics exactly the ammunition they were waiting for. In the season opener against the Dallas Wings, Clark recorded 5 turnovers. In the following game against the Los Angeles Sparks, she recorded 11 turnovers across 2 games. That is the kind of raw statistic that writes its own headlines, and the media landscape did not hesitate to run with it. The reaction was swift, loud, and largely devoid of context. Social media amplified the narrative almost instantly. Podcasters and commentators, some of them former players with platforms and audiences, seized on those numbers as confirmation of a story they had already decided to tell. The story went something like this. Caitlyn Clark cannot handle the pace and pressure of elite WNBA competition. Her turnover numbers prove it. A player making those kinds of mistakes cannot be trusted to lead a serious team. It was a narrative built on raw numbers with no analytical foundation. It ignored usage rates. It ignored assist totals. It ignored the cognitive complexity of the decisions that were generating those turnovers. It ignored the fundamental mathematics of what happens when you ask one player to initiate, create, and execute the overwhelming majority of your team's offensive actions. Kate Scott was watching, and she had clearly done her homework. During the third quarter of the Fever Storm matchup, her broadcast partner LaChina Robinson noted a stunning figure. At that precise point in the game, Caitlyn Clark had been directly responsible for 38 of the Indiana Fever's 77 total points. 38 points, generated by one player, in fewer than 3 quarters of basketball. That is not just an impressive statistic. That is a window into the kind of offensive gravity that Clark exerts on every single possession. Nearly 50% of everything Indiana produced offensively flowed directly through her hands, her vision, her movement, and her decision-making. That was the platform Kate Scott used to address the critics. She acknowledged that she reads the commentary. She acknowledged the ongoing criticism about Clark's turnover numbers. And then she pivoted to something that the critics had conspicuously avoided doing. She looked at the actual data in context. She compared Clark's numbers to Nikola Jokić, the multi-time NBA most valuable player and NBA champion, who averages approximately 10 assists per game alongside roughly 4 turnovers per game. She compared Clark to Cade Cunningham of the Detroit Pistons, a player carrying an enormous offensive load for his franchise, averaging around 9.5 assists per game and approximately 4 turnovers per game. Her message was delivered calmly, directly, and with complete analytical accuracy. When you handle the basketball for the majority of 40 minutes, she said, when you are the engine that everything runs through, you are going to turn the ball over. That is not a character flaw. That is not evidence of struggle or inadequacy. That is simply the reality of playing basketball at maximum volume and maximum creative speed. Welcome to the sport. It was a masterclass in sports broadcasting. Not because it was flattering to Caitlyn Clark, but because it was accurate. And accuracy, when delivered with conviction on a national platform, has the power to recalibrate an entire conversation. Let us take what Kate Scott started and build on it, because the analytical case here is even more compelling than a single broadcast moment can fully convey. Caitlyn Clark is currently averaging 9 assists per game, placing her in the top 3 in the entire WNBA in playmaking. 9 assists per game means 9 possessions where Clark made the right read, delivered the right pass at the right moment to unlock the defense and create a high-value scoring opportunity for a teammate. 9 times per game, she made a decision that required elite spatial awareness, timing precision, and the physical execution to deliver the ball accurately under defensive pressure. The critics focus on the possessions where that chain breaks down. But they systematically ignore the 9 possessions where it works perfectly. This is not analysis. This is selective reading. And in basketball, selective reading of statistics without contextual grounding is not just lazy. It is actively misleading. Look at the historical precedent across professional basketball. During James Harden's peak seasons in Houston, when he was averaging 35 points per game alongside double-digit assist totals, he was one of the highest turnover players in the NBA. Nobody argued that his turnovers were proof that he was struggling or that his talent was overrated. The analytical community understood that his turnovers were the natural byproduct of playing basketball at that kind of creative volume, with that kind of decision-making frequency. LeBron James has spent 2 decades being one of the highest usage players in professional basketball. He has also spent 2 decades producing turnover numbers that reflect his usage. Luka Doncic carries one of the highest usage rates in the modern NBA. His turnover numbers are consistently among the highest in the league as well. And yet no serious analyst presents those turnovers in isolation as evidence of fundamental weakness. They are contextualized within the broader picture of what those players are generating alongside them. Caitlyn Clark deserves the same analytical rigor. Her turnovers are not the product of poor decision-making in a vacuum. They are the product of playing basketball at a cognitive speed and creative ambition that most players at any level would not attempt. She is throwing passes into tight windows because those windows, when they connect, destroy defenses. She is pushing the tempo because her team's ceiling is dramatically higher in transition than it is in half-court set plays. She is making split-second reads against defenders who have spent their offseason specifically studying and preparing to disrupt her tendencies. Some of those attempts fail. When they fail, they register as turnovers. When they succeed, they register as the assists that are currently ranking her among the elite playmakers in the sport. You cannot have one without accepting the risk of the other. That is the fundamental bargain of playing high-level, heliocentric basketball. Every great offensive creator throughout the history of this sport has made that bargain. The criticism that pretends otherwise is not serious basketball analysis. It is noise dressed up as expertise. The performance Clark delivered against the Seattle Storm was the kind of statistical line that would generate breathless coverage for almost any other player in the sport. 23 minutes of playing time. 21 points. 10 assists, 7 rebounds, 9 for 9 from the free throw line. Read those numbers again slowly. A near triple-double in 23 minutes. Perfect free throw shooting. A double-digit assist total. 7 boards from a point guard. 38 of her team's 77 points either directly scored or directly created through her playmaking. That is one of the most efficient single-game performances the WNBA has seen this season, for any player, at any position. In 23 minutes. This is what elite offensive impact looks like when you strip away the selective narrative and read the complete statistical picture. Clark was not reckless. She was not overwhelmed. She was surgical, efficient, and devastatingly effective against a quality Seattle Storm defense. She unlocked passing lanes, made reads before defenders could rotate, and converted every free throw opportunity with the mechanical precision of a seasoned veteran. And the national broadcast provided the context that allowed viewers to genuinely appreciate it. That is what sports broadcasting at its best is supposed to do. Not cheerleading, not blind praise. Honest, data-informed contextualization that gives the audience the tools to understand what they are watching. Here is where the conversation takes a turn that is harder to talk about but equally important to address honestly. Because while the national broadcast booth is doing the work of defending and contextualizing Caitlyn Clark's contributions, Serious and valid questions are being raised about whether the Indiana Fever's own organizational strategy is working against the momentum their star player is generating on the floor. Take a close look at the promotional graphics the Indiana Fever have been releasing to market upcoming games. What you will find is a pattern that has not gone unnoticed by the fan base. The team is consistently choosing to feature role players in prominent positions on their marketing materials. Players like Raven Johnson, a young rotation player averaging modest numbers and logging limited minutes, have appeared prominently on promotional content for marquee matchups, while Caitlyn Clark, the player currently leading the WNBA in assists and ranking second in overall scoring, is frequently absent from the foreground. Let us be absolutely clear about something. This is not a criticism of the players being featured. Raven Johnson is a professional athlete working to build her career, and she deserves respect. This is a criticism of an organizational strategy that appears to be making a deliberate choice to minimize the individual spotlight of their most valuable and most marketable asset in favor of projecting a collective team identity. On the surface, that might sound like a reasonable approach. Teams win together. Culture matters. Avoiding an environment where one player's brand overshadows the entire organization has legitimate organizational arguments behind it. But the evidence suggests that this particular strategy is carrying a very real cost. Attendance numbers at Gainbridge Fieldhouse have softened noticeably. The Seattle Storm game that produced Clark's near triple-double in 23 minutes drew a crowd with thousands of visible empty seats compared to the organic sellouts that characterized peak moments of her rookie season. When Clark first arrived in Indiana, the building filled because fans were drawn specifically to watch her play. They wanted to be in the room for something historic. That energy was real, powerful, and financially significant for the franchise. Something has shifted. A segment of the fan base is sending a message with its wallet and its presence. They are Clark fans first, and when they perceive that the organizational environment surrounding her is not fully supportive, when they sense that the marketing approach is deliberately designed to redistribute her spotlight, they disengage. They do not buy tickets. They do not show up. The franchise has responded to the attendance dip with promotional giveaways and deep discounting strategies. Family night packages with dramatically reduced ticket prices bundled with food vouchers and merchandise. Holiday-themed promotional giveaways offered outside of any actual holiday context. Secondary market get-in prices have dropped sharply for certain matchups. These are the tactics you deploy when organic demand has weakened and you need external incentives to fill seats. The contrast is jarring when you hold it against what Clark is producing on the floor. A player generating near triple-doubles in 23 minutes of playing time. A player responsible for half of her team's offensive output. A player who, by any serious analytical measure, is one of the most impactful performers in the league. The disconnect between what Clark is delivering and what the organizational strategy is communicating to the market is real, and it is costing the franchise in measurable ways. The Indiana Fever organization is standing at a crossroads that has implications far beyond this single season. They can continue their current approach. They can maintain a marketing philosophy that emphasizes collective identity over individual stardom. They can continue navigating the attendance softening through promotional incentives and discounting. They can manage the sideline dynamics between their star player and coaching staff through whatever internal processes they currently have in place. And they can watch as other voices, national broadcasters and independent analysts, do the contextualizing work that ideally the organization itself would be spearheading. Or they can make a different choice. They can look honestly at the evidence. They can recognize that Caitlyn Clark's offensive output and national profile represent an organizational asset of extraordinary value. They can build their marketing, their communications, their system design, and their public narrative explicitly around the reality of what she is doing on the floor. They can become the loudest, most informed advocates for understanding her game properly, rather than leaving that work to broadcast analysts on NBC. The numbers are not ambiguous. The market signals are not subtle. Kate Scott provided the analytical framework that the organization's own communications strategy should have been providing from the beginning of the season. She looked at the data, drew the accurate comparisons, and delivered the context that reframes the entire turnover conversation. That is not complicated. It is just honest basketball analysis applied without agenda. The Indiana Fever have a player generating 50% of their offense, ranking among the league's elite playmakers, and producing historic efficiency numbers in limited minutes. The organizational response to that reality should be thunderously clear and unequivocal support, both on the strategic and marketing level. What Kate Scott did on that national NBC broadcast on Sunday afternoon was deceptively simple and genuinely significant. She read the data. She applied basic analytical context. She drew accurate comparisons to NBA stars operating under equivalent offensive burdens, and she delivered those findings clearly and directly to a national audience that had been saturated with a turnover narrative built on selective, decontextualized box score reading. Nikola Jokić averages 10 assists and 4 turnovers. He is the consensus best player in basketball. Cade Cunningham averages 9.5 assists and 4 turnovers while carrying his franchise's entire offensive load. Nobody presents those turnovers as evidence of fundamental inadequacy. Caitlyn Clark generates 9 assists per game, sits second in WNBA scoring, and was directly responsible for 38 of her team's 77 points in a game where she played 23 minutes and produced a near triple-double with perfect free throw shooting. The context matters. The mathematics matter. The comparisons matter. When you hold the basketball for the majority of 40 minutes, when your hands touch the ball on the majority of your team's offensive possessions, when you are making high-speed, high-precision decisions against elite defenders who have prepared specifically for you, turnovers are not a character flaw. They are an occupational reality shared by every elite, high-usage offensive creator in the history of professional basketball. Kate Scott said it plainly. Welcome to the sport of basketball. Now the Indiana Fever organization needs to decide whether they are going to build around that reality or continue the strategic choices that are visibly costing them fan engagement, ticket revenue, and organizational momentum. Because the player is doing her part. The numbers prove it beyond any reasonable analytical dispute. The question is whether the people surrounding her are ready to do theirs. This is simply explained. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Was Kate Scott right to contextualize Clark's turnovers through NBA comparison data? And do you believe the Indiana Fever's marketing decisions are directly impacting their attendance numbers? Subscribe and hit the notification bell for ongoing analytical coverage as the 2026 WNBA season continues to unfold.